Hey, it's David from Cyber City Circuits. On today's show, Braden Lane asks, a lot of makers think some components are beyond their ability. It would be cool to hear about the early days of Cyber City Circuits and how you have grown your skill level. When I was starting out doing design work, I was doing only through-hole stuff. That's all I was doing. I wasn't interested in even trying surface mount. It seemed like it was just the next level that it was just out of my scope for now. So I did a lot of through hole, about a lot of through hole at Mega 328Ps. I would buy boxes of resistors from AliExpress. So if you buy 10 box at 10,000, they come in a nice dispenser and everything, and they're all through hole. I'd buy bags of 100 nanofarad caps that were 5mm pitch that for like $1 for 100, and so I would buy like 1,000 of them, just no big deal. And I played around a lot with through-hole parts on in KiCad. When I met Chris, who's the other owner of Cyber City Circuits, he did a lot of surface mount. He's been doing surface mount for years at this point, and so he was able to teach me a lot of stuff about the using the metal stencils where you could tape it down to a board, use other PCBs to kind of build a jig. That was really cool. So the most common size components in electronics is called 0603. It's really small. They're all really, really small, right? But 0603. But if you start designing around components like 0805 or 1201 or 1206 or bigger when you're doing surface mount, it becomes almost trivial when you're placing it. And you can get some really nice tweezers. You can get them on Amazon. I'm talking about like the $10 tweezers, but they're worth it. Look in beauty supply and find the really nice tweezers. And a hot air gun, a $60 hot air gun. And then when you order PCBs, you just get the thin metal stencil without the frame, and you can tape it down, like this video right here.
So you put the board in your little jig you make with your PCB, and then you push the stencil down on top of it. You make it lined up so that you can see the silver pad. So if you see any solder mask, then you did it wrong. And then you take your squeegee tool, which you can just use a putty knife from the hardware store, and that works just fine. And you just smear the solder paste down. Now keep in mind, you don't want to leave solder paste out and open, because it will start sucking the water and humidity and moisture out of the air, and it'll get into the solder paste, and also your flux, which the chemical inside your solder paste will just start evaporating off, and it's just bad. So don't leave it open. Don't let it stay exposed to air. And pretty much if you use solder paste and you don't put it back in the container right away, it doesn't stay good for very long. So keep that in mind. So let's talk a little bit about solder paste while we're on the topic. I made the decision early on that I was just going to use lead-free. And I didn't use ENIG until recently when we started doing manufacturing more. But when I started out, I used the Hassel finish, and I always used lead-free. And so I wanted a lead-free solder paste, and I tried a few. And then I found this Loctite GC10, and this stuff's amazing. It comes in, what is this? So this is 250 grams. This will last you a long time, but they have expiration dates. So that's something to keep in mind. But this is meant to be shelf stable. This is the first shelf stable solder paste on the market. It comes in this, which you take it out with your putty knife and you smear it down. But then you can also get it in tubes. Again, this is, what is this? Let's see if I can show you. GC10. And you can get it in tubes. And that's my preferred delivery method for solder paste, because then you can put it in a caulking gun and just shoot it down. And it works great. But, you can get it like this, you can get it like this. It's expensive. I want to say right now, I get this stuff from Mauser. It's like $100, $120. It's pricey. Something to keep in mind. But it's the best solder paste I've used, and I love it. Another thing that you might want to get familiar with is flux. This is the Amtec Flux right here. I actually bought this from Make Megahertz, who's right here on Twitter. Give him a shout out. Dustin, he's out of Atlanta. He makes this Xbox HDMI mod kit, and he manufactured it himself in Atlanta. He has a whole facility and everything. It's amazing. But he sells Amtec Flux. So I bought a bunch from him. Best flux I've ever used. I love it. Best flux. Another thing I'll mention, but I hesitate because I'm not exactly sure that you need it, is a microscope. Now, you can get these right here for about $60, but then you can get these bigger ones, and we got one of these in the back, and they're like $250, $300, but they're amazing. They're high definition, and they come with this viewing monitor, and it's great. They're a mess of wire because every little thing has its own cable, but you get some zip ties, and you'll be fine. Another thing I wanted to touch on was QFNs and QFPs and things like that, SOIC 8s. What you want to look for is when you open up datasheet, you want to look for the pitch, which is the distance between the pins. There's a lot of common pitches. There's 0.5 millimeter, a 0.8 millimeter, a 1.27 millimeter. The bigger that pitch, the easier your life's going to be when you are assembling it. So if a package or if a chip comes with a QFP package, which means P stands for pin, QFP package, but it also comes in a SOIC 8 package or a bigger package with a higher pitch, just go with the higher pitch one. It's going to take up more board real estate, but it's more practical for you to actually assemble it. And you might want to look at the AT Tiny series if you're looking for an AVR like that, and you don't need a lot of GPIO and a lot of processing power because a lot of those come in those SOIC 8 packages. But let's say you're stuck with a QFP package. If you're really good at hand placing, it's not a problem at all. It's 0.5 millimeter pitch. We just got power back. That's cool. The compressor kicked on. Oh, everything's booting up. So QFP packages, you just be patient. Add some flux to it, right? The flux is really good for those things. Just trust me on this. To recap, use bigger passives, use bigger packages on your passives, your resistors, your capacitors, things like that. On your smaller pitch parts, use flux. Get a hot air gun. Get some decent tweezers, good tweezers. Get a few pair. Get a thin metal stencil. Don't get the frame stencil unless you have the machine that the stencil is supposed to go in. It won't work for you. We can talk about that another time. But get the thin metal one and just tape it down, make a jig, and maybe get a microscope. I don't think that's necessary, but maybe it is. So please, if you have any PCB assembly needs or design needs, Cyber City Circuits, I'm David. You can also email us at sales@cybercitycircuits.com. We're also Make Augusta on Twitter. So Make Augusta on Twitter, Cyber City Circuits, cybercitycircuits.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. Bye.